Hello, church family. This is David Lucky, and I'm here just to briefly talk with you about one of the passages from our daily reading plan today, namely Psalm chapter 91, verses 1 and 2. They read, "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust." That is the King James version that I grew up with. And I found in a commentary by Charles Spurgeon that my dad gave me many years ago an interesting statement in regard to this psalm that I want to share with you quickly. He says, quote, "There is not a more cheerful psalm. Its tone is elevated and sustained. It is faith at its best," he says. Now listen to this. A German physician spoke of it as the best preservative in times of cholera. And in truth, it is a heavenly medicine against plague and pest. Those who can live its spirit will be fearless, even if London again became a quarantine hospital and the grave was gorged with carcasses. Now, Spurgeon, of course, is speaking of the cholera pandemic in the middle of the 19th century and prescribing this psalm as an antidote, as what he calls faith at its best. And that is the kind of encouragement that he derived from it in his lifetime in the 19th century. Here we are in the 21st century, still drawing on this text to encourage us in the time of pandemic. I hope that you will find that encouragement through this passage and through this brief reflection upon it. Now, I have faith that the secret place is the place of experiencing God's divine presence and the safety and peace that is available therein. In many religious traditions across the globe, it is believed there is a creator God, but oftentimes that God is understood to be remote from the created order. That is to say that God is believed to be entirely transcendent and not involved in the day-to-day affairs of humankind. For example, in the West African context, the Yoruba people believe in a high god called Olodumare, and they believe that that god is remote from the created order, remote from humanity, and they rely on intermediary deities or spirits called Orisha that they believe carry messages to the high god. Now, for Christians, however, of course, along with the cognate monotheistic traditions of Judaism and Islam, there is the belief that there is one God and that that God is both transcendent and immanent, that that God is both wholly other and transcendent, yet immanent, meaning present to and present within the created order. Belief in God's immanence is exhibited through the belief that God answers prayers, that God heals, that God comforts. In short, that God is involved. God cares about the created order, and God cares intimately about the day-to-day lives of human beings. So in a time of social distancing, God is not distant from humanity. God is not distant from the created order. God's immanence also indicates the capacity for numinous experience. In other words, the experience of the mystery of the divine, an encounter, an experiential encounter with the divine. Encountering that mystery is perhaps what John of the Cross referred to when he spoke of the dark night of the soul, or what St. Augustine referred to when he experienced that restlessness. He said, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in God." Or perhaps even closer to home for Methodists, that experience that John Wesley had at Aldersgate, the heart strangely warmed, right? An encounter, an experience, not a kind of neck-up theological exercise, but an encounter, an experience, something that is felt very deeply in one's heart. Now, some may refer to these as mystical experiences or even pejoratively as emotionalism, right? But there are many instances in Scripture and beyond that point to these kinds of divine encounters. In fact, even scholars such as Richard Swinburne and Janet Soskis use the pervasiveness of these kinds of human experiences with the divine as arguments. They call them cumulative case arguments for the existence of God. So perhaps these esoteric experiences are precisely what is meant by this idea of the secret place in Psalm 91. Yet despite their esoteric or secretive nature or character, if you will, the imminent accessibility of God makes these experiences available to you and I, to those willing to seek an encounter with the divine. Now, Pastor Andy's been encouraging us to take the time that we have during this season of social distancing to spend time with Jesus, to get to know who Jesus is. So perhaps this time will afford us the opportunity to find that secret place for ourselves. So above all, I hope that this brief reflection on the psalm will encourage you that God's presence is a place of refuge for you today, and one that you can access and experience. Now, all of this reminds me of a song that was written by a friend of mine. It's called The Secret Place. And I hope that this brief little chorus I'll sing for you will sort of jumpstart your journey toward the secret place with God today. It goes like this. Take me to that secret place, cradled in your warm embrace, and take me to that shelter from the storm. Hold me safe in your holy arms, and take me to that secret place, cradled in your warm embrace. Take me to that shelter from the storm. Hold me safe in your home.